unbelievable video that is in this. It is stunning, this film. It's delicious. The sound, the shot, the tight shots. Can you give me a sense of how on earth did you get these kinds of pictures?
So it's really thanks to Katya and Maurice Kraft that we have these images. Katya and Maurice Kraft, these French volcanologists, they fell in love over their shared passion for volcanoes in the late 1960s. And they grabbed cameras and really dedicated their lives towards getting as close to erupting volcanoes as possible to capture the imagery in an effort to really understand kind of the magic, the power, and of course the science of volcanoes. So it's really thanks to their love and their boldness to get so close to capture these images that we have them now in our film.
We have this video of Katya standing incredibly close to a volcano erupting, and it is it gives you chills because you worry about her. And I noticed that you started the film with their lives ending, like you gave that sort of foreshadowing at the very beginning. Why did you do that?
There's a few reasons we chose to tell the audience that soon it will be their last day. We do that because we really didn't want the audience to be focused on how Katya and Maurice might die doing such dangerous work. That's an inevitable question that arises. But instead, we hoped people would focus on how they live. And that's really what Fire of Love is about. It's about this remarkable, meaningful life that these two humans lived in relationship with their beloved volcanoes. The other thing, too, is this is a collage film that's told through the materials that they left behind, their footage, their photographs, their writings. And we wanted the audience to know, first and foremost, that what they are watching is their materials that were left behind when they passed. So we had to acknowledge their death in doing that. And also, this is a film that's about time, and we wanted to kind of pull into focus the fleeting nature of human life amid the enormity of a volcano's lifespan, so to speak. So those are all considerations we had in wanting to let everyone know first off, these people have passed, but you're watching their legacy on screen.
Something that they really wanted to share with the world, which is why I think they got so close to these extremely dangerous volcanoes that have killed thousands of people over time. Maurice and Katya grew up in France. They had to live through the aftermath of World War II. And you get this real sense that they were, if not sick of humanity, annoyed with humanity. And they turned to, the earth and what it was doing and the life there. Would you say that sort of drew their humanity out to be around something that they absolutely couldn't control, but that was incredibly beautiful?
Absolutely, yeah. Katya and Maurice expressed that they felt a kind of disillusionment with humanity. They really saw humans possessing the potential to create, but instead destroy. That was something, they experienced as they were children in the aftermath of World War II, as you mentioned, and also they came of age during the Vietnam War. They were so enchanted by what seemed like the creative powers of volcanoes. Volcanoes possess the ability to create new land, and of course there's the destructive side as well. But it was through learning about kind of the vastness, the expansiveness of these forces, using science as their lens through inquiry, that they were put in touch with the precarity of their own humanity, how fragile human life is, and thus how important it is to live every day with intention and meaning, and how their work could also go on to save lives. They were uniquely positioned to understand volcanoes, and so they could really work with governments, with decision makers in order to educate people to, for example, move out of the way of an eruption, to evacuate in time, to implement warning systems in order to save humans, save human life as well.
When you speak about this, they do have an incredible legacy. They were two of the few volcanologists that got very close to gray volcanoes, which is the most dangerous type of volcanoes. And I, too, am fascinated with the absolute beauty and the danger that they possess. Can you give us a sense of what they have done for humanity and what they have done for the study of these, monstrous explosions that happen with gray volcanoes, and whether or not it's made a difference in people's lives?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that they did was by so boldly capturing this imagery, they they essentially kind of pressed a fleeting phenomena to posterity through the camera. You know, an eruption only happens the same way once, and so by having it on film, scientists were able to study it time and time again. So that alone, their cinematography, their photography was a form of data, which was very valuable to, especially the burgeoning field of volcanology when they were really coming up. But as you mentioned, explosive volcanoes or grave volcanoes are an extremely powerful, deadly force. Very tragically, many scientists have lost their lives, including Katya and Maurice in 1991 in Mount Unzen, due to being so close to these eruptions. But in 1986, Katya and Maurice actually filmed what's known as a pyroclastic surge, which is essentially a burning ash cloud that races down a mountain at a beguiling speed. They were able to film a pyroclastic surge, which helps people understand how it moved. That went into a video that taught people how to understand volcanic hazards that spread around the world and helped governments to kind of understand just how dangerous this force is. And it's quite tragic that Poetic, just a week after their own death, their video went on to save, well, along with many factors, but their video helped to save many lives in the Philippines because decision makers there had seen this video, had understood kind of the power and the potential dangers of pyroclastic surges, and were able to work with people on the ground to evacuate just before Mount Pinatubo exploded in 1991.
Maurice Kraft said, "I prefer an intense and short life to a monotonous long one, a kamikaze existence in the beauty of volcanic things." That is quite a mouthful and quite an interesting idea. But Katya did not seem like she had that same idea for her life. And you show that. Why show that sort of decision that the two of them are doing the most dangerous thing, but they both have a different idea of how they want their lives to end, even though they both ended together in this terrible way?
Yeah, Katya and Maurice both were so passionate and so in love with volcanoes and found such meaning in living life with volcanoes and through the pursuit of scientific inquiry in that way. Maurice burned quite intensely. Katya certainly did too. But they did have differences, as you said. Katya dreamed of a long life with volcanoes. She wanted to see as many volcanoes as possible to understand them as deeply as possible. Maurice wanted that too, but for him, it's through our research, it was about the kind of intensity of the experience a bit more so. And so they both they had a conflict there. They were usually able to reconcile though, because they knew that it was so important to be in sync with each other, to support each other if they were going to pursue their ultimate love, which was being close to erupting volcanoes. So that always forced a reconciliation. We like to think of the film as a love triangle between Maurice, Katya, and volcanoes, and it was that pursuit of these volcanic forces that always kind of pulled them back together in the end. And very tragically, they did die together. But it's a bittersweet death. Of course, it's devastating, and people still mourn them, as well as the other 41 people who passed away in that explosion.
So, yeah, you're saving her.
Died truly doing what they
There's
loved.
no saving that castle.
Zaragoza, director of Fire of
I just love that
Love.
we're
I got to
bundled.
tell you, this
It's
is
so
one of the
fun
most
to see these things coming
extraordinary,
together like a force of nature.
beautiful, dangerous films that I've seen in a very long time. Thank you so much for bringing it to us.
Oh, thank you so much,
I'm so
Sarah.
glad you want to save money. Rodney, set up a bundle for John here.
Of course.
12 boys and their commander in the flooded caves.
Technically, you didn't say what.
Yeah. It's a 5-hour dive.
Those are our boys in 17 countries.
That would have come from all around the world. Who are the boys?
5,000 people.
How is he going to get those kids out?
They're crazy out here. It's unethical. It's illegal.
It's their only chance. United the war. 13 lives. Rated PG-13. Coming to Prime Video.
Cuando llegamos, lo que vi fue a un chaval que ya estaba en bastantes malas condiciones ya casi no tenía fuerza para mantenerse a flote y le lancé el chaleco de rescate que tenemos. Por las olas nos costó un poquito llegar, pero gracias al cordón que tenemos se lo conseguimos dar la mano y ya pudo quedarse a flote mientras llegaban los compañeros socorristas con la moto y a partir de ahí ya rescatarle.
Not a time capsule. Sometimes the house itself can tell you about young homeowners turning into their parents. Yep, they're gone. Yep, that there is Progressive's Home for Explorer website where I compare home insurance rates. We don't need to rent the internet. Some are beyond them. I will give you $100 if you can tell me what this is. Scotch egg. It's a meatball. Everybody knows I wrote that song. But we can't help you compare rates on home insurance with Home Explorer.
We even got a lot of
Fantastic.
WNBA star Brittany Griner focused on the final and decisive phase of her trial for drug charges in Russia. Speaking to CNN right after visiting her, Griner's lawyer says the athlete is keeping the faith.
She started dinner, but for potential customer Tom Ham, I will make an exception.
And she knows that the end of the trial is approaching, but she really appreciates all the support she's getting.
Griner's legal team is building their strategy on efforts to get leniency from the court by showing remorse for trying to enter the country with vaping cartridges containing cannabis oil.
I do understand what my charges are against me.
Россия напала на Украину. Можно с Россией быть друзьями? Как вы считаете? Это наш злейший враг. Поэтому память друг России с Украиной, он потерял смысл.
So far, their approach has worked, as well as possible with the Russian court.
The courts accepted already almost all our evidence. So I think that procedurally is going.
Conviction rates in Russia are well over 90%. Brittany Griner faces up to 10 years in prison if found guilty. The U.S. has been frustrated by a lack of progress trying to organize a prisoner swap with Moscow to get both Brittany Griner and former Marine Paul Whelan, who's currently serving a 16-year sentence for alleged espionage, which he denies, released. Secretary of State Blinken said he raised the issue with the Russian foreign minister in their first phone call since Russia invaded Ukraine.
I pressed the Kremlin to accept the substantial proposal that we put forth on the release of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner.
But the Russians have made clear they don't want to speak publicly about prisoner swaps.
Okay, have you kids find love?
This topic was discussed over a year ago during the Geneva meeting between Presidents Putin and Biden. There, they agreed to authorize competent people to deal with these issues. The foreign ministry is not one of them.
Brittany Griner's legal team says they have not been made aware of any negotiations and are only focused on the tough legal battle ahead.
She also said that she loves her body, she misses her family, of course her wife, and again she appreciates a lot the huge support she's getting from women of WNBA, from the sports community in the USA, in Russia, worldwide. So she's just very, very grateful, and it really means a lot to her.
In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a small team led by 3 Ukrainian curators and 1 artist fought to present their work at one of the world's most prestigious art fairs, the Venice Biennale.
Well, you know, when your son is getting close to you at 5 o'clock in the morning and saying, Father, they began, you know, definitely you don't think about your projects in Venice. It was quite a serious decision because at that time I realized that it would be important really for the Ukraine to be represented on the cultural scene You can have problems with the politics, you can have problems with the economy, even deep and huge problems. But still you can survive. But if you don't have culture, there is no nation, there is no country.
As Ukraine was thrown into crisis, the team behind the art pavilion had to prioritize personal safety as well as their mission. Eventually, they would plan trips to Venice, mostly driving across Europe with their families, their belongings, and parts of the artwork down to exhaustion.
Guaranteed the funnest way to
First
search
day
for a
of
home.
war, Emerald, a little bit shifted.
This morning, different views of
I didn't
one
have anybody to
conversation, the
take care of that
2-hour-plus
besides
phone
myself,
call
perhaps,
between
and,
President Biden and Chinese
our-
leader Xi
our
Jinping,
budget.
especially over the issue of Taiwan, in the midst of a potential visit there by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, the statement from the White House reads, quote, on Taiwan, President Biden underscored that the United States policy has not changed, and the United States strongly
Meanwhile,
opposes
Pablo,
unilateral
having
efforts
spent
to
6 days
change
in
the
a bomb
status
shelter in
quo
the city
or
centre,
undermine peace and
evacuated from
stability
Kharkiv to Vienna
across the
with his
Taiwan
wife,
Strait.
a friend
Now,
and her mother,
the
and
Chinese
his own
readout is different. This is what the Chinese say. They say, we firmly oppose Taiwan independence.
And in the family.
And
So you know,
interference
it's
by
like,
external
let's
forces
go
that
and
will
go to
never
the car,
leave
please, and
any
we have to
space
leave.
for Taiwan independence
fresh from
forces
Kyiv
of
to
any
Lviv.
form.
She was
Adding,
heavily
quote, public
pregnant.
opinion shall not be violated, and if you play with fire, you get burned.
Scary.
I hope the U.S. side can see clearly the U.S. side should abide by the one China principle and implement the three China-U.S. joint
a lot of support
communiques.
to accommodate us, to help us.
Boris also fled.
So
Finally
CNN's Will
arriving in
Ripley
Venice
is
only
in
a few days
Taiwan
before
for
the
their
launch.
reaction to the current tensions.
Every man,
Taiwan trains
but
for a
we have
Chinese
many
attack.
roles.
Air raid sirens in Taipei. Fighter jets scramble. Helicopters hunt submarines. Destroyers open fire. China's refusal to publicly condemn Russia's war on Ukraine, adding urgency to the island's annual
In
military
Milan,
drills,
Maria and Pablo
fueling
found a
fears
company
of
to
a
rebuild
cross-strait
part of the
conflict.
installation that had been left behind.
Taiwan
with the original
tensions
design team
dominated
in
a more than 2-hour call Thursday. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping trading warnings on Taiwan. Chinese state media quoting Xi, those who play with fire will perish by it. The ominous warning. Amid growing speculation, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi may be planning a trip to Taiwan, a plan discouraged by Biden.
The military thinks it's not a good idea right now.
Pelosi won't talk about the travel plans for security reasons. It will be the highest level U.S. visit in 25 years.
There could have been more dialogue between Taiwan and the Biden administration, rather than have this confusing mixed signals presented out there openly in the public in a way that now China has noticed and will respond to something.
A U.S. aircraft carrier strike group is back to the South China Sea, citing routine operations ahead of Pelosi's possible visit.
It would be caught in the crossfire of a conflict between the U.S. and China. It would be Taiwan, which is right there next to China.
Beijing promises firm and
The
resolute
concept
measures
inspired
to
over a
safeguard
dozen
national
works of art,
sovereignty.
but none had functioned as
Chinese
flowing water.
passports show Taiwan as a mainland province, even though it has its own military and government for more than 7 decades.
Taiwan is a country.
For
Taiwan
us,
is
for
our
the whole
home.
team, for the artists,
We are
it's
not
extremely
home
important
anyone.
to produce it the way it was,
Chinese,
without any minor
not
changes,
Americans.
without any
China
damage,
considers
without
U.S.
any,
Taiwan diplomacy
adjustments.
a
It's to
red
show
line.
that
Beijing
artwork
won't rule out
is
using
there,
force
no
to
matter
prevent
what.
the island's formal independence.
We will show our willing to defend ourselves.
Well, this new attention that we are
Defending
getting
against
now,
China's
is a little bit
massive
painful because
military
you
would be a
understand that this
Herculean task.
planted
Taiwan is
regional
counting on friends like the U.S. to defend their
Russia is
democracy
saying now,
from what they
Ukraine
call
is not a
a
country,
growing
it has no
threat.
culture, it doesn't exist, you know. Culture
In
is a
recent
national
days,
security
Chinese
question.
drones have been
Culture
conducting
is how
surveillance
we
near
can
Taiwan,
live
and
together.
from
How
the
can
Taiwanese
we,
government
these
perspective,
different
even though they
individuals,
were briefed
can
on
find
that call
rules
between
and act
Xi
as
and
they
Biden,
decide.
certainly publicly they're
I don't
saying
feel
that they
myself as an
welcome
artist.
Nancy
I
Pelosi,
much
but
more
there
feel
is
myself
a
as a
debate
citizen
on the
who
ground
has
here
his
about whether
duty to
such a
represent his
high-profile
country.
U.S.
As
visit
long
right
as
now
all the
is helping
countries have the
or
same
hurting Taiwan's long-term position when it comes to the relationship with China and
the
trying
very
to keep
presence
the
of
peace.
this in Venice, I think it will give hope, show that Ukraine is capable of doing things, not just hiding in a shelter, not just surviving, but really do things, build a future.
Well, I'm not
stop the
100%
war
sold.
right now. but
Okay,
it might
have you
stop
paid
next
fine?
time.
Well, she's not interested. I get it. Not everyone wants to save money. I don't know. Renters and homeowners can bundle and save. For what? A trip to Bora Bora? Bora boring.
Okay, you know what? I'm in.
She's all yours.
How's it talking? Get those kids out.
A crazy idea that brought the world together.
Yeah.
Deep in Sudan's gold country,
Away from the front lines, an army of artists begin the process of mending this nation's grief,
barely surviving,
gently repairing the hurt brought on by war. At Lviv's National Opera, everyone has a part to play. Tonight's Giselle Ballet will be the first full performance since the theatre closed its doors almost 2 months ago. As musicians dust off their instruments and as the audience starts to trickle in, for us, coming to the theatre is returning to a small part of our life which was there before the war. We are internally displaced from Kyiv, says Julia Dmitrieva. We had to come to Lviv while there are hostilities. The artistic director tells me why they decided to open now. We understand that light must defeat darkness, that life must defeat death, and the mission of the theatre is to assert this. But the reminders of war are never too far away.
And we've come to this. Our Iran group is expanded in case of an air raid.
Only 300 seats were allowed to be sold tonight, the capacity of the opera's bomb shelter. Still, it's sold out.
It's only minutes now until that curtain opens, and you can feel the tension because this performance is extra special.
For a few hours, nothing else matters. As the audience and I are transported to a world of love and beauty. Playing Giselle tonight is 21-year-old Irina. It feels great, she tells me, back in the dressing room, because dancing helps to distract from what's happening. Like many here, her life has been shaken by war and the horrors of Bucha, where mass graves were recently found. My mum and my grandmother and her sister survived occupation in Bucha, she tells me. Now she's in safety in Poland, restoring her nerves.
You can make 10 times.
Dorina finds solace on the stage,
10 times more money,
throwing herself behind her character.
And the only foreign process operational.
All the negative emotions which accumulate for a long time flow out, she tells me. A cathartic performance for both those on and off stage, offering comfort to those who need it most, in the hope they can lift, if only just briefly, this nation's aching soul.
According to the Sudanese government,
Isa Suarez, CNN, Lviv, Ukraine.
They are still here, still evading sanctions. We verify their
Yeah,
location.
you're saving hundreds the home loan bundle from Progressive, but there's no saving that casserole.
I just love that word bundle. It's so fun. So you have two things coming together
Red
that force
flag
an answer.
of former Soviet Union blows in the wind. Increasingly used by Russian nationalists, it brazenly masks the cold.
Rodney, set up a bundle for John.
A Russian tank is next.
Is it still cool
We
if I
get
catch
to
a
the
ride home with you?
entrance and decide to ask a few questions,
Technically, you didn't say it
but
wasn't.
not before we turn on covert cameras.
Yeah, الشركة الروسية.
Well, that's convenient. They've just confirmed the Russians are at this location.
احنا صحفيين مع قناة CNN عاوزين المدير الروسي عاوزين بس نستفسر معاه في حاجة. Black pickup. Okay, تمام. Guys just confirmed that the Russian man is in that black pickup and is on his way to.
The Russian man races to the office, but place. The reason they're so we obtain their registration documents to prove it. The document on the left is from
9 days ago, 12
the one
boys
on the
and their
right is
coach trapped in the
These
bloody
dates
cave.
represent complaints
Talking
made
about the quiet guy.
against
What's today?
these ones from Solaj. Under Sunni's law, when a company is holding some transport, so are any judgments against it. Here you can see the judgments of both companies. All they've done is cheat, bargain, hiding in plain sight to avoid US sanctions and keep the financial pipeline flowing back to
Racing
Moscow
against
and
time
its
to save Ukraine's cultural
a
treasures.
dangerous business to delve into.
Among them,
Since we've arrived in country, I've been informed by sources of threats that
ancient
they believe to be
manuscripts
credible
hastily stored in
against
boxes
me. They
meant
say
for
that's what
supermarket
happens here.
antennas.
When you look too
Fastest
closely
way
at
to
Russia's
save them from
business
the threat
dealings,
of
brought to
Russian
me one of
bombardment.
those sources, and he's
When
asked
Russian
that I
missiles
come
hit
along.
the historic Holocaust Memorial in the capital of Kyiv, National Museum Director of Lviv, Igor Koshan, realized no place was safe. From his now empty museum, he tells us why he ordered the emergency storage of the city's entire collection. We see how Russia is shelling residential areas, even people that are evacuating, he tells us. They guaranteed they wouldn't, but now